Good morning. Oh, we're missing a presentation. Should be on beans. We'll wait just a moment. Yes. It should have been sent. Okay, we're working on it. In the meantime, it'll be about beans. The title is B for Beans. Now, Brian said, wait a minute, I'm B for Brian Bear. How did it get to be beans? I said, well, today it's beans. You're like me. I had to come up with a quick presentation this week, and I think I was hungry for beans that day. And suddenly I thought, I'm going to talk about beans. Well, it's a simple slide. But that's all right. It'll be here in a moment. It turned into fall awfully quick, right? So sometimes we change our menus up a little bit. I'll just go ahead and start with the first slide because it's just a picture of beans anyway. So we're going to talk about the humble bean. It's humble, but it has a lot to it. They are simple, beans are nutritious, and beans are delicious. And we are talking about the dry edible beans, the dry beans, the beans that are dried while they're in the pod. Okay, not green beans, not string beans, but the dried beans that can be stored. How many of you have a storage of beans at home? Yes, it's one thing that we can always have on hand, right? Those and onions, and you're ready to go. All right. Now I do have the, okay. So we're not gonna go into detail of the types of beans today, because of course we all probably have our favorites. There's Great Northern, there's Pinto, there's cranberry, et cetera, black beans. But they're all good sources of protein. They're all good sources of fiber, and they're all sodium-free, fat-free, and cholesterol-free. Now, they're referred to several places in the Bible, but I just picked out a couple today. In the book of Ezekiel, it's kind of an odd story. Ezekiel was commanded to make a miniature version of Jerusalem and surround it with besieged towers and battering rams. So during the first part of this mock siege, he was told to eat only food based on the recipe that we see here in Ezekiel 4:9. Take thou also unto thee wheat and barley and beans and lentils and millet and fitches, and put them in one vessel. And I looked up fitches. Fitches are millet, by the way. And put them in one vessel and make thee bread thereof, according to the number of days that thou shalt lie upon thy side. 390 days shalt thou eat thereof. It's a little strange. How many of you have ever had Ezekiel bread? You can buy it in the grocery store. It's usually in the freezer, but they took this and actually made a recipe for bread, and it is delicious. But anyway, why was the prophet Ezekiel given this type of recipe? It was actually to symbolize a coming famine when Jerusalem would be laid under siege. So this is one time that the Bible specifically mentions beans. Another time is in the book of Daniel. Of course, we remember the story where Daniel and his friends requested to not eat of the king's table, and instead they asked to have pulse, or legumes as we would call them today. Daniel 1:12 says, prove thy servants, and this is Daniel speaking to Nebuchadnezzar's chief of whatever the heads that were in charge of the chief of the eunuchs. Thank you. He was in charge of the captives. And so he says, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. So he's asking for time to demonstrate the superiority of his diet that he was choosing. It seems like a very short period of time to produce any appreciable changes. But what we have to remember is that Daniel and his friends were already following health principles. And so the Lord was able to bless them in maybe a way that a normal 10 days wouldn't have maybe shown such a difference. But there was a considerable difference at the end of those 10 days. So let's talk a little bit more though about beans specifically. For one thing, they're high in protein and in fiber. And as far as fiber goes, they're high in both types of fiber, both the soluble and the insoluble. So that makes them very beneficial in fighting against viruses and other pathogens. The soluble fiber traps the cholesterol inside the digestive tract. So then it's allowed to be excreted, and that helps to lower our blood levels of the LDL cholesterol. One way I remember which one is which, the LDL, I always think of the L as lousy. So that's your lousy cholesterol that you don't want to have. The dry beans also provide substantial amounts of insoluble fiber, and that helps to combat constipation, colon cancer, and other issues of the digestive tract. They are lower in calories and saturated fat than most other protein sources, such as meat, dairy, or eggs. And they're 20 to 25% protein by weight. So that's pretty substantial. It makes them much higher in protein than other vegetable sources. Beans are excellent for your heart. There are correlations that are clear between eating beans and the reduced risk of cardiovascular diseases. For example, they've been shown to lower cholesterol. Unlike meat-based proteins, they're naturally high. Beans are naturally low in cholesterol, and they're low in fat and trans fat. Research shows that a diet including beans may reduce your risk of heart disease. Another benefit is that they are protective against cancer. They have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. So there was investigation done on women's breast health, and the data showed that beans were actually among the major food groups tested. Beans and lentils were found to have the most protective properties of all against women's breast cancer. Research has also showed that the risk of prostate cancer was cut almost in half by those who were eating beans and legumes. Also, there was a significantly lower risk of renal cell cancer with those who were eating beans and other high fiber foods. So what's the secret that lets beans turn out powerful results like this? It's something called inositol hexaphosphate, or IP6 for short, and it's a powerful cancer-fighting compound. Another feature is an IP10, and that has actually been found to inhibit tumor growth. So beans are also good stabilizers of blood glucose levels. So anyone who's concerned about having their blood glucose levels kept in check, especially those with diabetes, but just anyone, it's good to not have our blood sugars go up and down randomly, or so this is a good way to stabilize those. Typically those who are vegetarians and are on a low glycemic index are told to eat a lot of beans. But they're good for all of us, whether we have diabetes or not. They're also helpful for appetite control, and also they're beneficial for your gut biome. Of course, with their high fiber levels, that helps to contribute to a satiety feeling, so that we do feel full and satisfied when we have our bowl of beans. Also, researchers have found that a variety of beans in the diet feeds and boosts the beneficial level of bacteria in the gut. So that helps with our immune system function. Beans are high in something called a fermentable fiber, which is what the gut bacteria feed off of. So beans can help support that immune system. Beans are also high in essential vitamins and minerals. They're really a good source of potassium, and that's important for blood pressure levels. Beans are also an excellent source of copper, phosphorus, manganese, and magnesium. Most types of beans are rich in iron, so that's something that we all are interested in. Most type of beans are also excellent sources of water-soluble vitamins such as thiamine and folic acid, riboflavin, and vitamin B6. So they have a lean protein, and that helps to maintain and promote muscle as well. So they're considered, in a sense, superstars because of their high antioxidant levels as well. And pinto, kidney, and red beans fill in the three tops tiers along with black beans. And what they have in common is that they are dark in color. And so the darker the color of the bean, the better they are for you, actually. The US Dietary Guidelines recommends that we eat about 3 cups of legumes a week. That doesn't seem like a lot to me. I have a feeling that maybe within the inner circle of Adventism, we would be recommending more than that, but I didn't have time to look that up. So in a lot of circles, we're recommended to eat them pretty much every day. You can't overdo on a bean, in other words. So if you're like me, you may be getting hungry by now. You might want some beans. So be sure to check out the upcoming e-news, put a couple of recipes in there for some good fall recipes for beans. I hope you will be blessed and enjoy your beans this week.